Hello, and welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to a Beyond the Summit presentation of the iLeague Dota 2 Season 3 Chinese qualifiers. We've got Old Boys versus Newbie Miracle here. This is Game 2 of a 2-game series. We'll have to see if Newbie Miracle can bring it back. They went down in Game 1 to a really strong, really just all-around powerful Old Boys draft, and yeah, they're going to look to even the odds and bring it to a 1-1 draw while Old Boys look for the shutout here. But thanks again for tuning in. I myself am Blaze, and once again I am joined by FlyingZebra Dota. How's it going, man?
Good. Excited to see this Earthshaker again. It was really good last game, and now we see it like a classic Shadow Fiend combo.
So I noticed one thing right off the bat is that the two players that drafted previously are not doing so again. Cold Snap was the drafter in Game 1 for Newbie Miracle, and Long DD was the drafter for Old Boys in Game 1 as well. Does that mean anything at all, or is it just they changed the PC that they happen to be talking about?
I mean, I have no clue. It's not something I see often, so seems a little awkward to me, but maybe are they playing in some kind of LAN setting or anything like that?
Oftentimes they have at least a team house setting that they play within. Like they have like all the support they need in China to kind of group up together. But I'm not too sure actually, especially for Old Boys who kind of seem to all be doing their own thing. I don't think they're doing anything formal as far as like boot camping and team housing, but it's possible. I really don't know the structural dynamic behind the teams, but. Xiao, he's picking up the drafter seat for this time around, grabs himself an Earthshaker and his Shadow Fiend. Again, just really good bread and butter heroes. You've got your long-range stuns. You've got your potential hybrid burst damage. I mean, you've got magical burst damage with a right-click carry. Like, that's just a really nice mix of potential output as long as he can survive. Earthshaker's a great hero to keep him alive for a while, but what more do you need to keep this Shadow Fiend kicking, especially against such an aggressive lineup as Io relocates, Queen of Pain blinks, and Clockwork hooks? Like, everybody's going to be on this SF in my mind. They need to keep him alive. Where do they go?
I feel like their other hero, their other support at least, is going to be something that can do more rotations, maybe like a Sky, like from the last game, or...
Denial pick of the Io Tiny. They are afraid of that combo, and they're going to take it off the table. It's not ideal, but I have seen a couple of different ways this Tiny could be run. Of course, safe lane carry with like an Ogre Magi to give him Bloodlust to kind of give him the attack speed and movement speed that he usually would get from the Wisp is not too bad. But if you want to, you could actually run him as a support, and I've seen him pull lanes for certain teams to deny experience to the presumably Queen of Pain mid, and that would be, if practiced well, a good way to respond to this situation.
Yeah, it's something that a lot of teams have been experimenting with, I think. A little clunky, maybe a little cheesy, but if it works, it works.
So how do you feel about denial picks to this magnitude? Like, sometimes you just see like a pick that both teams kind of want. Well, the enemy team wants it more, so one team picks it up, and that's fine, and it still works in their draft. This seems a little bit further into the extreme, where they had absolutely no intention of picking up Tiny until Newbie Miracle picked up the IO. Do you feel that that's a good strategy? It could be a self-defeating strategy?
I think you're kind of right on there. Sometimes it can be a self-defeating strategy, but I mean, if you have a good Tiny player, usually you can make stuff like that work regardless. It's not like a terrible hero whatsoever. It has a stun. You can like throw the Earthshaker in for like a free Blink Dagger. That's kind of nice.
Yeah, a lot of potential there, and there's a lot of magic damage coming out, which I actually really like going up against a Sven. Warcry is a really powerful AoE armor tool, and if you just try to emphasize physical damage to the utmost, then you're going to have some trouble just based on the fact that it's so heavily mitigated. So I like the idea of heavy magical burst damage, and before Sven picks up a BKB, he's going to have a pretty hard time with things. If Delina is a core, she could go for Aghanim Scepter and extend that past Sven's BKB, but I'm not sure if they can actually run that reliably. Like, as a core Lina, it would have to be a support tiny, and that would be just awkward all around, perhaps, unless, like I said, extremely well practiced. So the Broodmother ban, that makes sense, since Io is terrible at dealing with the Spiderlings. Sven doesn't really want to go for Great Cleave early on. He's not going to use his Stormhammer unless it's like a dozen spiders that he's hitting with his hammer. So Broodmother banned out. And, I mean, they could have dealt with it, in my mind, but they didn't want to, is the idea. Witch Doctor going to be banned out on the other side. Old Boys take that one out because, well, it's just a good hero that can help the IO sustain. Like, the Tether Heal plus Voodoo Restoration, that's hero staying alive for a very long time, so it kind of multiplies it by, like, 2.5 if both the heroes are in range. But, yeah, beyond that, what do you think Old Boys are looking for their last pickup?
I mean, it really depends what they're planning on doing with this tiny, whether the tiny Lena support, maybe their Shaker's even a core. It's really hard to tell right now. They're very flexible, obviously, so it can kind of go in any direction, I feel.
Yeah.
It's hard to say what they really want. Whereas, like, Newbie Miracle, I think something like a Sky would be really nice for them. I'm surprised that wasn't banned, actually.
So Sky doesn't give anything to the IO. That's one thing that I noticed. Like when I'm looking to go for an IO draft, I try to maximize that tether potential, and I look at heroes like Witch Doctor and Chen because you get that double Hand of God, or you get the double Voodoo Restoration, and it can be really powerful in terms of burst healing. Why do you feel Sky is that good? Is it just because he'll strengthen the lanes where IO is weak?
It's that, and he has a lot of good roaming potential with the clock. He's good at roaming onto the mid and maybe shutting down the Shadow Fiend. He's good with the Sven, in terms of he can like go to a lane solo and then they can relocate in, top of a silence target and blow him up.
Interesting. Yeah, I mean...
Excuse me. And then also, he has a high mana pool, and so getting mana boots on him, if you tether and mana boots up, you get most of his mana pool back, so he doesn't have to go home every time he uses this combo.
Sure. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. But they're going to go with something different here. They're going to go with the Sand King and try to go just for heavy initiation in their fights. Essentially, the fights break down where the Clockwork hooks in, sets up the fight in the first place. He says, this is going to be the Thunderdome, drops down the cogs, and then the Relocate comes in. Unless there's a Disruptor pick here, that's going to be guaranteeing the initiation where the Relocate will be netting at least one kill, which is the idea. So Io, Sven, Clockwork, they're all there. Queen of Pain can blink into the fight, kind of slightly off the side, get the Sonic Wave down, get a good amount of damage, and all the while, Sand King is channeling his Epicenter, looking to jump in on anybody that's reinforcing the fight. So a lot of quick stun potential, a lot of team fight potential, and very large amounts of mobility. I mean, Sven's naturally fast with the Warcry, give him the tether, and he's just race car, and then everybody's got a blink or a hook shot to jump in to follow through. So I feel like mobility and AoE stun and AoE damage is a very big part of Newbie Miracle's draft. Do Old Boys just trying to split push to try to counteract that, or are they actually going to take the fight to them?
So what was the supports of Old Boys last game? It was Long DD and...
I believe Long DD... Oh, no, DD was the Magnus, right? And Long DD was not? That's I always mix those two up is the problem. But I believe it was DD Magnus last time. He's got a Stout Shield now, so it should be support Lena.
Yeah, okay. So, you were... basically, I'm expecting a lot of roaming out of these two. They have a lot of like roaming potential with the Fissure into the Lena stun. Makes it really easy. OIFs might need a little bit of help, though. He can't really be left alone too much against the clock, I guess. So they're probably just going to be babysitting their lanes a lot. Earthshaker roaming the most. Looks like they're trying to get wards in the jungle for the Sand. I'm surprised the Newbie isn't actually there, like, and expecting that.
Yeah, that's now we're going to be kind of crossing paths here. We've got Double Boar for a potential level 1 clash. And yeah, they just get full control here. You're gonna see already the hard camp blocked off against the Sand King, a medium one as well. And the cool thing is you can actually block off the western hard camp just with the Hawk of the Beastmaster if he happens to be in the off lane. But we're gonna see the clash break down. Fissure kind of locks everybody in place. Io taking the most hits, and that's the right here to focus down. but it's going to be 820 that takes a lot in return here. So now a double stun actually misses as Burrow Strike comes forward, and with that nice Burrow Strike, they actually are going to be able to sense the first blood, follow through onto a double with YYF, and it really comes down to just the AoE stuns in that choke point. I mean, hitting multi-man Storm Hammers and Burrow Strikes, while the Light Strike Array hits essentially nothing, that's a huge difference maker, and it just allows the damage done to push that much further and higher on Newbie Miracle's side. So they open up with a first blood, a double, but what about them bounty runes? We've got Beastmaster and Clockwork, so 1 for 1.
Right, and that's why I was saying that it was a little surprising that Newbie wasn't ready earlier, because I felt like their level 1 was really strong. And if they were sitting at their choke point, that would have been huge for them, especially since Old Boys kind of ran up it as 5.
Yep. So one thing to note here is that the Sven only has 1 stun to commit to that fight because of his lackluster mana pool. Like, you compare that to an Alchemist or a Wraith King, they generally won't be able to get the AoE off because it's smaller radius or non-existent, but they have more mana to supply and it's a cheaper mana cost, so they'll usually get 2 out. So Sven has to make his stun count, but there it was, and it did succeed very nicely. But now you've got this interesting matchups as the lanes break down. Obviously, Queen of Pain feeling really good with that first blood, and just going to be controlling the lane pretty well against Joe. In fact, Joe has 0 Necromastery, or perhaps 1. I'm not sure if it shows the number for 1. In either case, yeah, he's doing the Queen of Pain's dominating the mid lane. Even though Earthshaker's nearby to help against dives, he's not able to actually win the lane for the SF. He's just helping lose it less. In the meantime, up top, Beastmaster's kind of using boars a lot to kind of manipulate the creeps, and down bottom is where the next kill comes through. It's actually Clockwork just finding a battery assault kill onto Lina. Is that, like, I mean, obviously the boots advantage, that happens, but you shouldn't expect it to happen.
No, that's definitely something that, obviously, like a little mistake by Long DD, just not being prepared for that. I think YYF was actually at the pole there, so they were trying to, like, keep the Tiny safe, but Long DD wasn't playing safe enough, so they still have the same problem. They give away a kill.
Yep, and Clockwork with the DD rune is going to go for it again. He will be avalanched up. They can't fight him, but they can at least dissuade him from pursuing further. So that is just going to be him doing really well here and showing what he can accomplish with this double battery assault. Still being aggressive thanks to the double damager, and even gets the cog knockback, and suddenly Tiny has no more stuns throughout this game. Like, this lane, I mean, it's just like, essentially with that mana burn, he's completely out of mana, and his spells cost so much that he's actually just a right-click hero from this point forward.
Yeah, I wonder if the clock will decide to just go all the way back to base, or if he's just going to try to get some last hits and wait for a bottle. The lane is pushing in, so I think that would be the best option.
Yeah, no Rocket Flare for any last hits, so the bottle will still take its time. He's still going to need about 100 gold, and I don't see him last hitting many of these creeps here with that range. But in the meantime, Shadowfiend is getting a little bit out of the lane. The Earthshaker's helped him out a bit, so we've been seeing skirmishes kind of in the corner of our eye between the SF and the Queen of Pain. The end result, though, is the Queen of Pain is looking really strong. She bottle crows once, but she's still just in a great spot. Boots, bottle, and a salve coming out on the Queen of Pain, and this kind of solidifies her advantage in the lane. Like, you don't unseat her from this throne when she's got that much regen available, and now they actually have a smoke gank roaming in. Earthshaker is in a good position to contest this, but still some chance, and oh my gosh, Joe is just so far in. There's no way you get out of that. They were looking for the tether on the blink, but they just get the tether on the burrow, and him being dead center on the river, just showing the overconfidence.
Yeah, that was just the wrong time, unfortunately for him. He just chose the wrong moment to come up and try to get a greedy last hit.
Yeah,
he's been struggling, so he's going to do it eventually, but
sure.
Unfortunately it's right when the supports come in, so...
I mean, he could have just waited for the creep wave to come back, but dare I say, impatience from Joe. But yeah, we've got a successful gank, 4-0 now for Newbie Miracle. They're looking really strong in the early laning phase, but the stacks from the Sand King, oh, actually, he's getting some. Like, I actually expected the ward to still be in place, but we've been kind of focused down on the bottom lane since Clockwork has been kind of pulling out some interesting moves. In fact, he probably kills the Lina here. He has a haste rune, and suddenly he's in melee range. Oh, he misses the cogs, though. So she's going to run around the creeps. That's her best bet of survival, but still looks like she will go down. Tiny's avalanche or not, it's still a hasted Clockwork, and he still should be able to right-click her down. So, yeah, it took a little while, but in the end, he dodges the Light Strike Array, And he won't go for more. I hope not anyways. But yeah, the nice haste room pickup. That's some easy kill. And Beastmaster forced back to base, but it looks like he did survive, perhaps TPing away from a tough situation. So all in all, 5-0 in favor of Newbie Miracle. The stacks are here for the Sand King. This is a triple stack for him, and he's sandstorming it up, and that's going to put him about level 4.5 here. So really good position for him to be in. Does he just outright rush the Blink, or is he going to go for a more transitional build?
I think it will be a Blink rush because his other lanes are doing so well. This Clock's having such a good time, and he just barely escaped an avalanche combo with a fissure on top. He actually got put onto the wrong side of the fissure with 20 HP left. The Tiny misses that kill, which would have been massive for him.
Definitely. Now Earthshaker just roams back towards the mid lane here, trying to help out CO and his farming game. Right now, 10 Necromastery. It's not an easy game for him. Luckily, he's going to not have to deal with the full burst combo of the Queen of Pain just yet. We'll see if 8GK goes for the Sonic Wave at level 7 or level 8. And bottom, connecting onto the Tiny. That's going to be a very nice solo kill. Once again, coming after the Clockwork. Up top, Beastmaster, one last orb, right click, it's going to be the kill. So Beastmaster does go down up top, and that makes it 7-0. They commit the God Strength, they get a nice kill. And, yeah, now back in mid, we're seeing the combos coming out. Nice double raise, but couldn't get the third off. It's not a Queen of Pain running and getting hit by the third raise. It's blinking away, and that's just too much distance for the long-range raise. Clockwork actually showing him who's boss, just cogging and walking away. How cheeky is this? I think Clockwork's having a pretty fun game right now. I mean, it's 3-0-2 as an off-laner. Just kind of showing these idols of his who's boss has got to be very satisfying.
Yeah, he got... In the draft, I expected him to do a lot, but this is like way more than you would expect from your offlaner at this point. He was drafted into a pretty good position. I mean, he got picked the second pick of the first phase, and Old Boys picked the SF after already having a Shaker, two heroes that are pretty rough against Clockwork to begin with. And then they picked Tiny and Lena and Beastmaster. Like, these are all heroes he can solo kill if he's like having a really good game. So
yeah. I mean, I would generally say no about the Beastmaster. He's got a lot of armor and a lot of HP, but you're right. He's having such a tremendous game that he might just be able to go for like a Blade Mail Rusher or something, and even return damage on the Roar makes the difference there. So, yeah, no, just in general, Clockwork is having a hell of a game. We'll see if he goes for the Treads or the Blade Mail. I've seen a lot of NA players more recently, if they get a good start, just rushing the Blade Mail and making it so that they can't be jumped on. They essentially, when they jump on somebody, they guarantee a kill.
Right, and it's just a lot of problems it causes because you can't do anything about it most of the time. A lot of heroes, like, you might have like a Skywrath or something, and you want to blow all your spells and kill them quick, but you just can't because you'll just instantly die or something.
Oh, and Vizrune is scouted out by the Old Boys as far as their ward goes, but no pings come through, so hopefully they're talking more in their voice chat than anything else, because otherwise Clockwork's going to find somebody before very long. And Shadow Fiend, Earthshaker are both easy kills here, and oh my gosh, even the neutral camp is really low here. Shadow Fiend scouted out. Oh, they nearly miss him. Oh my gosh, just barely walking into the fog of war. He doesn't catch sight of the Shadow Fiend. The Shadow Fiend is now perfectly alive, and it's going to be a 3v2 as the Earthshaker gets caught inside the cage. Hookshot across, Longidina taking a lot of hits, and there's a Sonic Wave to make it a double. So the Shadow Fiend finishing off his camps as quickly as he can, and then just hiding and in fear of this Clockwork. He's just been putting on the gank train right now. So far, a really great game from him, and really, I mean, what can you do in this situation? You are just getting steamrolled. He's about to have a Blade Mail. I don't know. This is a really rough game for Old Boys. At least the Tiny will get some space. Beastmaster has had the free lane for now, or free-ish, in a 1v2. Now the Tiny will actually have some space to farm, but I don't see any single item that'll put him back in this game.
Yeah, and this is where you're sort of starting to regret trying to block pick somebody with the Tiny. It's such a clunky hero sometimes, and it's so weak in the lanes against heroes like Clockwork. This is where you start to see that it was pretty detrimental to actually do that.
Yeah, is there a better hero that would go along with the Lena against the Clockwork? Oh, Clockwork finding another one, it looks like. Oh, jeez. He does get the cog knockback, but he's almost got enough mana for that hook shot, and he might... Okay, no, he has to run from YYF here, so we will just kind of disengage from this. But yeah, in the laning phase, there was the potential. Oh, Colt Hansu, you don't have your Blink Dagger yet, man. Why? I don't know why he's left the jungle. Actually, he doesn't like his team is doing perfectly fine without. But Regen Rune bottled up. It's gonna Rune Greed is gonna cost him his life here. Now I will note that Dire don't really have great vision here. Like he was even rocket flaring this area when he was going for bottom rune previously. But no, it's still just in general he had a lot more heroes committed to him than he realized, and he got outnumbered there. But yeah, I just feel Hansu could be farming the jungle. And back to my question, is there any way they could have salvaged those lanes if they picked something other than the Tiny?
I mean, something against Clockwork that would be good probably is something that could solo against him somewhat, and then supports can just kind of rotate in when he's like out of position and get a kill on him. Because when you already have supports that are pretty weak against this offlane Clock and you don't have a lane ward for him, it's so easy for him to just pick on them so well. And if you have a hero like Tiny that has a low mana pool and weak spells, and he's already vulnerable to the Clock himself, there's not much you can do about it, and that's what we saw in the laning phase. If they had something like, I don't know, a Viper or something of that sort, which wouldn't be too bad this game, but something that can just like do more to help and can actually solo against the Clock pretty well, so the supports can just roam and come in when they choose.
Yeah.
That's kind of what you'd be looking for.
So, I would say most of the mid matchup has been played out based on the First Blood initially. The Queen of Pain kind of getting that big boost in momentum really allowed her to just dominate the Shadow Fiend, and it forced the Earthshaker to play just kind of babysit on the mid lane as a result. And I feel like that was kind of a butterfly effect between the way the first fight played out. But the other lanes, like, I mean, being this successful with the Sand King is huge. The fact that Hansu has been able to commit to just 1 or 2 fights and suddenly he has a 12-minute Blink Dagger, that's just outstanding in my mind. Being able to play that greedy support and still profit off of it, Newbie Miracle are in a really good spot in my mind. But before we look over at the net worth, let's just finalize the current last hit count. 87 and 35 is your Sven. So he's doing really well in the safe lane, denying back the waves. And the Queen of Pain even, 71 and 27, trying to negate a lot of Necromastery stacks for the Shadow Fiend. So SF only ends up getting 60 CS, some from the jungle. Tiny gets 50 down on the bottom lane. And Tiny does get a kill on IO. I was just looking over there, but didn't see the kill opportunity. The roar was not used. It was just
It's an invis.
Oh, invis Avatos. So we do see now that he's revealed. We'll have the Clockwork going in. He'll be tossed out of the cogs. Nice play there. And actually, it should be the death of Clockwork. Also a great stun. The Blink stun coming in from Hansu. And Zhio's just going to try to gun these guys down. Stormhammer connects, though. Queen of Pain cleaning it up. Blinks forward aggressively. And DD will go down with 2 more right clicks. The Stout Shield block. He'll live with 29 HP for a moment. Nice LSA, and it's actually going to be 8 GK going down. A lack of vision from the Lena's rotation, and they actually lose out pretty heavily there. Let's just look at... Okay, that fight recap tells me nothing, but overall, I feel that old boys are just happy to be on the board. What do you think?
Yeah, I would say so. The Quab dying especially was pretty big, and the Clock. Both 2 heroes that are doing really well right now.
Yeah.
It's good traits for them.
Yeah, if the Queen of Pain walked away, then that would have been different. And if, of course, if the Beastmaster died too, that would have been disastrous. But they opened up by killing off a Wisp, and then they were able to get 2 more under the tower. It's actually not too bad for the old boys to play defensively like that and just kind of hold under the tower with their abilities. As long as they have the Roar cooldown, they can fight under tower. But they're taking the fight to them, and the Blink Burrow Strike is available. Epicenter 2, they're going to go on the Sven first and foremost. The Echo Slam just to ensure it, and Hansu's just sitting there. There was no Blink Burrow. There was no Epi Blink. Just chilling, waiting for his Arcane Boots, and says, sorry, Sven.
Yeah, I really thought he was going to go there, but I guess he just decided there's not enough time to really make a return kill happen here.
Did this Sven just die too quick, I guess? I don't know. Oh,
yeah.
So he has the mechanism, has a TP. Probably needs to use both right now. Just the mech for now, and it looks like Beastmaster's close enough to keep him safe.
And
Yeah.
also the chance that he just thought there was more heroes there than there were.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, if you put out the full Epi Burrow and then you only do enough damage to bring everybody down to like 25% health and there's no follow through, then it is a pointless cooldown. But now they Epi onto Sio, and that is, even without the hook shot, still a free kill. The mechanism's on cooldown, the magic stick is insufficient. They will kill off Sio, and they're going to look for Diddy too, pulling him into the cogs, out of the trees. The roar hits the Queen of Pain and knocks out the Clockwork, and that actually keeps him alive, perhaps. The damage over time from the Earnest Shadows as well as the Shadow Strike. Sonic Wave coming through. Hansu gets bottled up, but it's not enough. They're actually just going to gun down the Lina. Oh, wow. Just getting the Laguna Blade at the last second. The Stormhammer now kills off the Lina, and it's going to be the death of the Tiny as well. Beastmaster survived the Shadow Strike, and the Relocate brings them back top. In the end, the dust settles. We see a lot of blood on the battlefield. And it is not too bad for Old Boys, to be honest. The big thing I would say is they, of course, lose Necromastery charges for Sio once again. He has died for the third time this game, and that obviously costs him some momentum. But as far as golden experience, I still think Old Boys are walking away pretty happy with that.
Yeah, and we saw the reveal of the tiny Blink Dagger first time. He's going for an aggressive build. He decided him actually farming this whole time is not going to do much. He has to make aggressive plays with the combo, and I agree with that. There's definitely kills to be had on this Clop and on the Wiz. Even the Sand King, they're not too high on HP at this point, so there's a lot of potential there.
So one thing I'll note is that Old Boys, with their limited amount of gold they're getting out of the laning phase in this early game, have 2 Urn of Shadows. Is that too much redundancy between those 2 items, since you only get 1 soul per kill? Or do you think they'll be able to benefit from the passive stats as well as at least one of them getting the active benefit?
It seems like that's usually double Urn is a pretty obvious miscommunication thing. Usually it's not something you do intentionally. It's very, very, very rare. Like maybe 1% of the time that it happens.
Okay. And I really don't feel like Beastmaster needs it. Like, Lina can really benefit from it. Beastmaster, he's already got a lot of strength to play around with. He could have just gone for the Axe, but it does go for the Urn of Shadows, and we'll see if he can get any real use out of it. We're seeing a lot of Urn charges fly back and forth, so maybe one extra one will net the kill. But right now they're looking, they get the Blink Avatos. Great combo out on the side, but the Relocate, oh my gosh, that would have been so beautiful if it came out in time, but just a moment too late. From 5400. That would have been such a good relocate. Just negating the roar, the full Avatos. Now they're going to try to rebound, but Long DD gets pushed out of the cogs somehow. And actually, the stun comes out on 820, so they will bring down the Earthshaker at the cost of the Clockwork. And the fight breaks down from there. Epicenter. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Hansu not connecting with the spells the way he meant to. And he has another Burrow Strike. He'll hit on 2, and it will kill off the Lina. But can HGK? Yes, he does get out at the last second. Io, not so fortunate. Cold Snap in the Invis. There's Orchid. Blink forward, Scream. Could do a lot, but they need the stun to connect first. So there it is. Hansu helping out HGK for the kill. And almost dying to the secondary Requiem of the Souls. But in the end, it's HGK to blink out. The Urn of Shadow is not going to tick him down in time. And the Sand King even is able to blink out of that situation too. So the tail end of it is favorable for Newbie, but Old Boys as a whole, just catching out the Sven, killing off the Clockwork, 2 core heroes down at the beginning of the fight, it's still overall not bad for them. And I think the biggest thing is how well they were able to disengage from the Sand King. Cold Snap couldn't get the full Epicenter off on his targets. If he did, that would have been nearly a wipe for Old Boys.
Yeah, he was going for the Earthshaker, it seemed like, but it was a little bit overkill. And then he just decided to put the rest of his a lot of time he had left on his Epi onto the other heroes in the river. But yeah, the start of that fight, there was just a little too much burst for the Wiz to relocate out the Sven. There was no chance for him. I think he went as soon as he saw the Tiny go in, but there's just way too much burst there.
Yeah,
the Laguna and everything.
Yeah, if the Wisp had a mechanism or something, that'd be different. But with his items only being just the basic sustain items, like bottle regen plus overcharge is not gonna keep you alive for those couple of seconds. So just a heavy burst, and that's what the Assassination Tiny really brings to your team lineup, is essentially just the avalanche and the toss, the amount of magical damage you can output, and then later transitioning into a semi-carry with right clicks. I mean, that's just exactly how you want to play the hero. We do have Clock waiting, hiding, but although they have great observer ward vision in this area, it doesn't look like old boys are going to venture in.
Something to note is that this clock has stagnated pretty hard. Since
He's going to try to make up for that here with a jump onto the Earthshaker. No spell cast for him. He can only Echo Slam inside the battery assault. Might as well just right-click, but in the end, he just goes down within the BA. So it's going to be the death of the Shadow Fiend as well, as they just make the full 5-man commitment and with that relocate. So that's how you want to kind of start fights, is just a Clockwork connecting with a hook, relocating behind it, and suddenly everyone's there with all those blinks. But after the tower dies, it's going to be YYF with a great blink Avatar's combo. Cold Snap trying to connect with some spells. It's going to be enough damage. They will make it a 3-for-1 plus a tier 1. In the meantime, up top, DD takes the tower of his own, and down bottom, the Sven Wisp that rubber banded from the relocate will continue pushing.
Yeah, they get that kill on the Tiny, it's just nice, but unfortunately they wasted another epi. They didn't actually use it for the kill. Yeah, missed it a little bit.
Yeah, but I mean, if you think about the cooldown of Epicenter and the value this support has provided the team, just the fact that with his Blink Dagger, Sangin has done so much already, I don't think it's the end of the world that he misses those kind of things. The one thing I'll note is that if they don't have it to cover Roche, it makes it a pretty risky proposition, but their Observer Ward coverage kind of makes up for that. They see everybody right now, and they don't see that Fisher coming. Man, that would have been really bad if they were able to follow up on it, but instead maybe baiting further, the hook shot available, and they look to pursue onto the Earthshaker. Perfect hook onto A20, locking him in. Again, he can do nothing. Force Staff from the Lina, but the spells are there. So he goes down, and even further, Hansu! That was a little ambitious, I've got to say. I think he missed the Burrow Strike and immediately got turned on.
He hit the Beastmaster.
Okay.
Alina just killed him with Laguna Dragon Slave.
Game is hard, but I mean, without the Laguna Blade to worry about, can they push a little bit with that Aegis? I guess they'll try. They've got the God Strength up. Already used it for a tier 1, so why not a tier 2?
Yeah, they see OB positioning mid, so until they see them move back off, they can still push.
So right now, just taking the tower down below half HP, and then they'll go back on the defensive. Sio does have that Invis rune. And toss, can you toss Requiem? I've never tried that combo. Queen of Pain denies the tower, and looks like that's going to be about it until Zio finds a target melee range. But he's only got 24 Necromastery stacks, so that's a 2/3 potential on your SF ulti, and of course it's also only level 2 out of 3 in terms of not being level 16.
In terms of that combo, I'm pretty sure it doesn't work. I know that Tiny Toss against enemies will always cancel channeling. I'm not sure about allies. It's not something I've tried before, or seen. I'm pretty sure it cancels, but
yeah, I would say you'd see a lot more like epicenter tosses and stuff like that if that works. So.
Witch Doctor tossed them away. I don't know.
Yeah. So yeah, we're gonna just see kind of spreading the map a little bit here. Sven farming some ancients, having a good time there. Smoke a Seat comes out, and YYF on the run. If he just goes in retreat, he's fine. But Hansu catches sight of him for a moment. There's the rocket flare. I think they know, but he's already in the trees, teeping away. So
yeah, he just barely scoots out of there.
Let's take a look at items. I don't think we've talked about that too much, but Shadow Fiend's working on his BKB. Beastmaster's got his Aghanim Scepter. Lina used her Force Staff really well against the Clockwork. And what's next for the Tiny? He's got the Ogre Club.
I think you still go for the Ags. You might go for a BKB first, actually, and just decide that being able to get into the fight, not die, and then go back in with another Blink Avatos is maybe the best bet. So it's just up to him whether he thinks fighting is still the best idea or if he needs to start transitioning into farming more with an Ags.
Well, let's think about how long Newbie Miracle are going to wait to end the game here. Essentially, they're building up the IO mechanism right now. They've got the data list pretty soon on the Sven. Aegis, of course, going to expire. So I would say the next Roche cycle is actually when they're going to look to maybe breach high ground. Actually, HGK finding out Joe. It's going to be the mech TP, but Stormhammer connects, and that's the kill. So now they're just, I mean, the relocate will bring them back, but they're dominating the Radiant jungle, and you just have to be afraid of trying to farm in the woods. We do see hookshot blocked, actually, from the Sand King. Allows the Tiny to escape from a tough situation, but, I mean, just overall, Newbie are dominating the map right now. And like I said, what's the timing of the kind of high ground push coming in from Newbie? I feel like if they get the mech, get the Daedalus, and get the Aegis for Roche number 2, that should be the catalyst they need to force that objective. And Old Boys, obviously, they need to be willing to fight at that point.
I think you were pretty spot on saying the next rush cycle, because as you can see, the Sven's items, he's got the mini crit, and now he's just going straight for the heart, which is really good for sieging, which is kind of what they were lacking a little bit in this lineup.
Yeah, I actually like that. Usually you just assume Crystallis is going to go into Daedalus. The only time I've seen a casual Christ is actually going like on a Weaver, now that he has the double proc, and that's kind of an interesting build-up thing. But going for just a little bit of damage amp with the Crystallis, and now going into the Heart of Tarask. Heart is amazing for this hero. God's Strength actually gives you the plus 200% damage based on your strength. So that 40 strength suddenly becomes 120 damage, and that's really good for your Sven. And of course, like you said, you can just go, when he's not popping the God's Strength, he's just sieging away gradually by taking some hits, backing off. The Heart of Tarask does not go on cooldown from the tower, so they're going to have to Dragon Slave or raise it or Fisher it off. So, yeah, I think that's the kind of the timing. And, of course, you get the Force Staff in the meantime. Clockwork will have probably a BKB of his own. And I think that's really when they're willing to take fights. And going back to the Tiny's item decision, that makes sense that he goes for the BKB now because he expects pressure from Newbie within the next 10 minutes.
Right. And also, all the tier 2s were up when we were talking about that too, so they still had to get those down before they're going to probably start sieging, take that free gold first. So.
Beastmaster looks like he's going to go for a Sange, probably into Heaven's Halberd. Should be pretty good against the Sven, but his BKB is at 10 seconds.
Yeah, when it runs out, it'll be really great. It's also not too bad against the Quap, obviously. She has a BKB as well. So either one, halberding them would be pretty nice as soon as the BKBs are done. Basically, this team's going to rely on waiting out BKBs and stalling as much as they can until they're done.
Do you think,
or catching them out before they get it off.
Do you think Old Boys have a draft that can turtle well enough for that? I mean, they've got some really good counter push, like Fisher, the Dragon Slave, just trying to clear out creep waves. Do you think they can just kind of huddle up, hold on to buybacks, and live kind of fight to fight? Just try to exhaust his BKBs through and stretch the game out?
I think so. They have the axes as well.
Oh, yeah.
And even like the raises and avalanche is really good for pushing out waves. As long as they don't let it get into their base and they're not being seen by anything, like the only risk they have is the clock hooking in when they come up to do something like that. So that'd be like the go time for Newbie.
So Lothar's Queen of Pain. She's already got the Orchid and BKB, which seems to be kind of the bread and butter you want. Talk to me about the Shadowblade.
Shadowblade, usually something when you want to be kind of ready. Allows you to... It's like one of those pushy items that gives you a little more kill potential, whereas like a Maelstrom or something is strictly for split pushing. Shadowblade lets you split push a little easier, but it also gives you potential to get solo kills, maybe on supports or something. Just get really close, blow all your spells, then blink out, rather than having to blink in and then get out with something else.
Yeah, that's the way I've been told a little bit about it, as I've seen it a couple of times previously, is essentially you don't exhaust your blink going into the fight. It's a 6-second cooldown that seems small, but those 6 seconds can be the time where you're caught in a position you don't want to be and you're killed. So a lot of people just say, okay, well, if you Shadowblade in the fight, you can blink out, and that prevents the timing of you getting roared and that kind of thing. So if he could kind of pop his BKB but kite the roar out, he'll be in a pretty good spot. Bulwark gets a hook shot in. A pickoff finally coming through, but they'll just Force Staff out A20. They yields up the Clockwork. Still going down. A huge epicenter from Cold Snap. Hansu is going to be hit by the Laguna Blade. He's going to be nuked down, and Joe will connect with the Requiem as they try to pursue. Slowed down a little bit here, just trying to catch, and the last right click comes through. That negative attack damage doesn't do much against the God's Strength, and they will be able to clean them up in the end. Nice response with the Yules with the Force, but it's just not enough. It's still disastrous for Old Boys. They lose the tier 2 tower, and it's not even going to take ages to breach here as Sven goes into tank. Backdoor protection's down thanks to Mr. Siege Creep here. Cardi the Catapult doing some work, and the fortification is all that's holding on this tier 3. They've got 20 seconds to wait at least, just throwing out the longest of range spells. Oh man, this Sven just doing so much work with this Heart of Tarask.
Yeah, now they also have the gem from Old Boys on the clock.
Oh, wow, yeah. I know the Sankey just picked up one, but I did not realize that they also got one from Long DD. Lena just wasted that, essentially.
Yeah, and she'd love to have, like, half of her eggs right now, but unfortunately, she had to buy a gem and got stolen.
So now taking down not only tier 2s, but tier 3 towers, and opening up the Roche Pit quite succinctly. So this will be pretty sweet. But I think at least Clockwork will wait about a minute, and then he'll go for his BKB, so that they can have that for the fight, and they'll wait the Epicenter cooldown, and that's all they really need. Once they have all their ultimates back in just 45 seconds or so, they'll go to the Roche Pit, and that's going to be their next play. Is there any way Old Boys can test this? They have the Greater Hawk Vision. It is maxed out, so they have great intel during the nighttime, but they don't have any like BOTs to sneak in. They really just have to go smoke through.
The hardest part is who you're gonna go on, and if everyone stays out of the vision while just the Sven is in front and the Wisp is behind him, there's almost no way to engage without getting counter-initiated on too hard, because you're not going to be able to blow up the Sven, especially with the Wisp there. And then you're just going to get epied on or hookshotted in.
Definitely.
So, yeah, I think them not contesting there was the right idea. It's just too hard to go into that team at the Roche Pit.
Yep, but now they're even stronger with the Aegis intact on the Sven here. Now, of course, he only gets generally 1 God Strength per fight. It's very unlikely it's going to be a full 80-second roundabout clash, but...
Smoke?
Okay, they're going to try to just pick the Aegis off the easiest way. Like you said, the going into the Roche Pit was a little predictable. It was still really easy to go kind of counter-converge on that. But with SF farming here, with Xiao revealed, it's kind of a good bait opportunity if he just kind of like pushes out the lane a little bit and they just are sitting behind him. Right now it's for the tier 2 that they're smoking. They have the Blink Echo Slam, and they're just looking for an opportunity. If in a predictable fight, in a fair fight, Newbie should win hands down. But catching them off guard, it actually might work in their favor. The problem is, they're baiting it. They actually succeed in the bait. The Fisher comes out, going in. YYF, the dual stun combo, really solid. He pops his BKB, almost kills the Queen of Pain, but she blinks out. And now Io relocated. He's going to be down very shortly. The mechanism doesn't come out in time. Laguna Blade brings him down. The Clockwork disengaging. The Sven on the run. Can he actually get out? There's just so many Blink Daggers, so many Force Staffs. There's the Yules to connect. And this might be 2 deaths for the Sven instead of 1. He gets tossed, he gets roared, and he is going to be killed. They have so many stuns against him, and he has no BKB. This is going to be the death of the Aegis as well as the Sven. And they couldn't have asked for anything better. They smoke behind. They bait the SF. He gets caught on the hook shot. Oh, almost getting a kill on the Earthshaker there. Rocket flare. Boom. Headshot. That is just perfect. But yeah, and nevertheless, the conclusion of it is the loss of the Aegis of the Immortal as well as the Sven. And it's all based on that smoke bait.
It also looked like a little bit of... There's a little problem with what the Wisp was doing with the Sven there. It seems like he was trying to take the Sven into the middle of the fight, but then the Sven just was running to try to catch the SF and like Warcried and ran out. I think he just broke the tether or something.
Yeah, it seems probable.
Maybe it's not exactly his fault, but there's some miscommunication there, it looked like, because the Wisp just kind of went in alone and died.
Exactly. Yeah, it definitely is like, you could say it was one person's fault or the other person's fault, but most likely it's just both of them. They kind of went their separate ways. The tether breaks in the end, and therefore the Sven isn't able to do as much damage without the movement speed and the attack speed from the Wisp. And more importantly, the Wisp is just kind of useless. Like, he has a mechanism, he's waiting to heal people, and he's all by himself because that relocates. So it looks like Long DD will survive. It's not going to be 8 GK to open because of the self-Yules. Like, you can't just rely on that initiation when, as soon as you silence him, he's just going to be a tornado. But, yeah, I guess Shadow Fiend will be the target instead, and without a Hex, that's going to be a TP away. So, yeah, overall, I have to agree with you there. It seems like the Wisp miscommunication with the Sven seemed to be the biggest problem for that fight, and that does whittle down the BKBs now. 8 seconds on the Sven, 8 seconds on the Queen of Pain. Are they just going to look for more fights like that for Old Boys?
Yeah, and especially with the Aegis gone this time, that's like, they got lucky that happened, because the Sven actually coming into the middle of the fight there, it would have been a huge problem. He would have probably killed 2 or 3 heroes, especially with the Wisp's help. And then he wouldn't have died, of course, because he would have gotten back out with the relocate probably.
Sure.
But yeah, now that he doesn't have an Aegis, that timing that we were talking about earlier with the second war cycle is gone, and killing him once is way different than killing him twice, especially with his heart.
Yeah. And are you in agreement that they still need to wait for the third Roche, the Aegis and the Cheese?
Yeah, I think they just need to keep pushing their advantage they have to keep the map control, and to keep their lanes shoved out pretty easily. Yeah. And they try to get an easy Roche with where old boys can't contest, but they're kind of getting to this position where they actually could do something about it now, if they manage to make it not too obvious, or if they just have the opportunity with their lanes pushed out, whatnot.
Yeah. It is worth noting that the Clockwork got out with like 10% HP, so he did get the second gem out. One gem is in the Dire base, the other one still in the hands of the Clockwork. So that actually at least is one thing. They're still establishing map control, able to deward if they just walk in the right places. And in the meantime, it's actually going to be H20 to have to like sentry. And the sentry's out exactly where the ward expired. That ward was there. It was what they used to jump on the SF in the first place, but it just happens to expire right when the Earthshaker deward comes out, and that's a little confusing for him.
And now we see a smoke by Newbie.
Yeah, what do you think the smoke is attempting to accomplish? Just one random pickoff, like a 3v1?
Yeah, they just got their hex, and they're looking to abuse the fact that they've had this map control for a long time to finally get a pick. They haven't been able to find one in a long time. That's just because they've been lacking that disable.
Mm-hmm. So we're going to be seeing some Ags pick up here. It's going to be gradual, but the Clockwork's working on his Aghanim Scepter. The Sand King is going to be working towards a much later Aghanims. Do you feel that that gives more potential to Newbie? Like, does it upgrade them to another tier of teamfight potential, or is it just a minor change, whereas the progression of Old Boys kind of trumps it? Oh, Sven does pop the BKB. He's not TPing away immediately, though. He's just going to crush Delina with a crit. And he's actually got the backup. 2 or 3 heroes coming in here. Wisp right here. Oh, great Burrow Strike. Gonna lock down the Tiny. He does have an Ags. He's very, very tanky with 2200 HP. And he does get the Blink Dagger out, but right into the Clockwork. Oh, that's still gonna be the hook shot, and it should be the kill. YYF does his best, but 2 down. And that was their attempt to gank up the Sven, actually.
Yeah, it was a pretty nice attempt. They scouted the Wisp out with the Hawk. They knew exactly what was going on. They knew if they went on the Sven, he would get relocated out instantly. And the Tiny blinked past him and stunned the Wisp. But then they just couldn't kill the Sven. He just BKB'd up. And they just got a free kill on the Lina.
Mm-hmm. I still kind of feel like there's some impetus for Newbie Miracle to actually push off of this fight. Because essentially you just exhausted your 8-second BKB. That's dwindling down quickly. And you have a 5v4 advantage. So they're going to force the Lina buyback. And then they're going to go in. BKB comes out on his Shadow Fiend. The Life Strike already wasted, but there is going to be a Roar coming out. Will they relocate it? No relocate. Just the Mechanism. Big Epicenter coming out, as well as Echo Slam. The 2 strength counter initiators going in hard. Shadow Fiend without a BKB on the run. 4-staffed out. Clockwork pursues into the base, diving deep, but it almost gets the kill. The Mechanism keeping Joe alive, but not for much longer. Now the heals coming in from Io. The Sven heart kicking in just a moment. Here he goes on the racks, but they're glyphed. And now the Shadow Fiend buys back. Stun it along DD. Look at the damage. He just gets crushed. And they have to wait for the next roar. Now Show going down. No Halberd against the Sven just yet. It's too late. The Halberd comes out at the last second, but the Shadow Fiend's already dead. Hansu dies on the bottom lane, but Sven takes the melee racks and heads for the hills. They die back the Shadow Fiend. They get the Hex onto Tiny immediately. DD can't roar with the Orchid against him, but it looks like it's diving too deep. There is the craggy exterior. It's too much against the Sven without his BKB up, so they will disengage. A 1 Rax and a double Shadow Fiend kill.
Did anybody else buy back for Radiant? Oh,
Lina bought back in the beginning of it. That was about it, I
she
think.
died twice as well.
Oh, yeah, technically. Yeah, I guess I didn't lump them together because it was kind of a pick-off to begin with, but you're absolutely right.
And that's pretty big for her because she was at like 3.5k gold or something. She's almost at her Ags, which is a pretty big deal this game, and now she's not even close.
Yeah. I really gotta say, Queen of Pain did really well with that Orchid against the Beastmaster. Like, knowing the timing of his roar coming off cooldown, even though it's only 45 seconds. Like, that was just great game sense from him. And now they get the Aegis and the Cheese. The only thing that I really think that they have to worry about is now the fact that Sven's BKB is low. in the sense that he's up against the Heaven's Halberd and the Craggy exterior. If he tries to actually hit the Tiny, most of the time that's not going to work out for you. It's just you get stunned by your own attacks unless you have that BKB active. So that's something that is going to become more of a problem as we see 5 seconds come out on the BKB after next. And yeah, I guess at some point you just ignore the Tiny. Like, I don't know. I mean, he's not that big of a damage dealer right now. I
think so. I think this event, it's not up to this event to actually have to kill the Tiny. Usually, like, you would say your carry has to be killing their carry because he's doing the most damage that game or something. But when Tiny's BKB is down, the rest of Newbie can actually dish out a ton of damage to him, especially with the Blade Mail and Clog.
Yeah. So that can work out pretty well. Just Clockwork kind of pens him in. Do you think that dive was a little too aggressive from the Clockwork going so far on Shadow Fiend? I mean, he got him twice, so you can say hashtag worth it in the end, but was it too risky? Like, I don't know if many players will go for that play, even as a heavy Clockwork initiator.
Seeing how weak the Shadow Fiend is now, when his BKB is down, it's pretty vulnerable. I liked the play a lot because you saw him buyback. You know he's going to be dead for a long time if you kill him. So whether you die or not, you're going to give your team so much space doing that play.
So it's a risk-reward thing, and he just saw the potential reward of it, taking the SF out hardcore as
right,
being
and I
really
think
nice.
It was, if he hits the hook, it's like pretty guaranteed that he would get the kill at that point.
Cool. Now we see that Slow Siege coming out, taking a different lane this time around. The overcharge helping a little bit, and Sven stays up on the high ground. Dragon Slave keeping the heart on cooldown. They just are doing some pinpricks of damage, but he's actually fallen relatively quickly, and again, he doesn't have the Aegis to fall back on this time. The IO does have Cheese, though, and one of my favorite plays to do as a Wisp, it's kind of a pub strat, is just to heavily overcharge the hell out of yourself until you're down to like 20% HP and mana, and then you tether and Cheese instantly, and whoever's about to die is suddenly full health. You have to sync it up with the BKB pretty well, but it could be a pretty solid bait if they want to go in with the Sand King.
Yeah, he'd have to start doing it as of 20 seconds ago.
Yeah,
but
yeah, exactly.
something he could do, yeah.
No, so we'll see. Right now it's going to be Sven taking a lot of damage, just regenning full with Heart, and Tether back, overcharge. Laguna Blade pretty much wasted on that overcharge. Like, he'll heal up quickly, and that's what they're looking to do, is just kind of very gradually siege this one out. Old boys are certainly unwilling to commit. Newbie can pick and choose their fights. They choose, for now, to play it as safe as it can be while still getting structural damage.
Yeah, Old Boys is just relying on their counter push that they have in the high ground defense.
Ooh, Show out of position, get his Hex, now hook shot. It's going to be a roar onto Sven, which is nice, but they're going to force staff SF out of the cogs. Actually, extremely important. The Aegis pop on the Queen of Pain here. Let's look at our buybacks as we see people dying left and right. First Wisp, cheeses up, full HP Sven, critting down the Earthshaker. Lena tossed up in the air, and now going on the Tiny, no Craggy for you. Double crit, in fact. RNG is on the side of the Sven this time. And that's going to be it. GG is called. Old Boys actually lose out in this second game in the 2-game series, and that puts Newbie Miracle at a draw. 1-1 is your conclusion as Newbie. They really actually found that miracle within, and they were able to pull out a tremendous draft, a tremendous strategy that worked very well in their favor here. 39-19 is your kill score, 42.5 minutes in. Is it just how the lanes broke down where Old Boys went wrong, or did they actually have problems with their mid and late game too?
I would say it was definitely the lanes. Because of that Tiny block pick, their lanes were significantly weaker, especially against a Clockwork off lane. And he just went to town. He made so much space, slowed down everybody in that tri lane so much. And then it made Quap's lane really easy because there's no supports roaming on her. And she already had a good start to begin with. So just all the lanes went really well for them. I believe it was like 10-0 at some point or something. And then they just snowballed off of that lead and kept taking control of the game.
Yeah, just really great team play coming out from Newbie Miracle. And yeah, I definitely think the draft was a little bit of a problem for... I guess Sio was drafted that time around. I don't know if that's any difference from what we saw in Game 1, if they just changed the draft captain seat or if they actually changed the captain mentality. But the Tiny block pick was something that needed to do more, and it just, in the end, couldn't come online in full. And obviously that comes down to the map control Newbie expressed throughout this game and some tremendous Clockwork play. Like, honestly, like, you could say Sven is that big guy on the front line carrying the game, but the reason he's there is because the Clockwork did so much work, and gotta commend him. He really played a great game, even if he doesn't have the best KDA on the team. So Yeah, overall, great win for Newbie Miracle. They put one more point on the board for their early qualifier stage, and we have a lot more Chinese Dota to come your way, guys. So right now, we have wrapped up a Newbie Miracle versus Team Old Boys. That is a 1-1. We don't see our third game decider, as we're just looking for points here in these best of twos. And the next game coming up here in, I believe, an hour is going to be the delay here, actually. I might be misscheduled, but right now, DG versus Tongfu, which is Dream Gaming versus Tongfu Wanzhou. And we will be seeing that in, it looks like, pretty much, 15 minutes. Okay, so it isn't a misschedule. We have 15-minute break, and then we're going to be going into another 2-game series, Dream Gaming versus Tongfu Wanzhou. Hopefully you enjoyed this series here. Obviously, awesome to see the old boys in action, but also the upstarts getting a underdog victory is also great to see, too. And once again, I am Blaze, broadcasting on behalf of Beyond the Summit. If you enjoyed the commentary, look me up at twitter.com/blazecasting. And, of course, my co-caster, FlyingZebra Dota. It's been a pleasure to have you once again, man.
Yeah, it's been really fun, and hopefully helping to the next games. Those will be good as well.
Yeah, so it is kind of Tier 2 Chinese Dota coming up, but I'm still looking forward to see what the two teams have to bring to the table here. Chinese meta's ever shifting, and this is the tail end of 6.83, boys. So let's see what they've got. That's going to be Tongfu Wanzhou Dream Gaming coming up in about